Some regions continue to defy normal explanation. Human combustion is not filed as a single story, but as a repeating domestic anomaly, a kind of aftermath that appears in quiet rooms and ordinary houses where routine should have been the strongest protection. And yet the center of the scene becomes the one place routine cannot account for. Have you ever heard about it? Mythical ground. If you like mystery, you have come to the right place. The first thing investigators describe is containment. The damage is not panoramic. Walls may still hold their paint. Curtains can remain hanging. A table can still carry objects that should have been ruined by heat if the room had burned in a normal way. The room looks lived in, then abruptly not. What draws attention is how much of the human body is affected compared to what surrounds it. Reports describe remains reduced far beyond expectation, while nearby materials show only partial scorching or a thin film of soot, as if the event expressed intensity without expansion. Many cases are discovered late. The victim is alone, the building is closed, and the moment itself is missing from record. The timeline must be inferred from stopped clocks, unfinished meals, a television left on, or a neighbor who remembers a light turning off at an ordinary hour. Fire scenes usually have a narrative, a spark, an object, a path. Here, the path is unclear. There may be a heater in the room, or a fireplace, or a candle used earlier, but nothing about these sources matches the scale and concentration of the damage that is documented at the center. In several accounts, the body's core is where destruction is most severe, while feet, hands, or parts of the lower legs remain comparatively intact. That distribution does not align with what most people imagine when they imagine a person caught in a room fire. Around the site, investigators sometimes find a ring of residue, a line where soot darkens a ceiling or a nearby surface, suggesting heat rose and collected, yet the room never becomes a complete burn environment. It reads like a fire that refused to behave like fire. The odor in the aftermath is often described as stale and heavy, rather than sharp and active, and the air can feel old, as if the event occurred quickly and then sealed itself, leaving only the evidence of something finished rather than something that spread. Some victims are elderly, some are not. Some have limited mobility, some are active. Some are known smokers, some are not. Attempts to reduce the pattern to a single lifestyle or condition fail because the category is too broad and the scenes are too similar. If alcohol is present, it is not present in every case. If open flame is present, it is not present in every case. If faulty wiring is suspected, it is not confirmed in every case. The pattern survives each hypothesis by appearing again without the same prerequisite. There are also the objects that remain: a paperback book near the chair, a wooden floor with only localized damage, a plastic item that should have warped more than it did. These are not dramatic details, but they are the kind that make a report feel internally inconsistent. In normal fires, smoke damage often tells you the direction of movement and the time the heat had to work. In these files, smoke can be light or strangely limited, even when the destruction at the center suggests a longer or hotter event than the room indicates. Sometimes, the room shows signs of a small secondary fire, as if fabric or a cushion caught briefly, but the damage does not climb outward like it should. It stops, and what remains is a scene shaped more like a boundary than like chaos. A recurring detail is the posture implied by the scene. The remains are often found near a chair, beside a bed, or within the small radius where a person would normally sit still, suggesting the event did not trigger the kind of panic that produces movement, breaking glass, or a trail across the floor. Some files mention that nearby electronics still functioned afterward, or that a lampshade remained in place, creating a contrast between a normal object's fragility and the extreme condition recorded at the center. The room looks like it should have captured the event, but it did not. When first responders arrive, they do not describe an active blaze. They describe a smell, a haze, a localized burn, and the unsettling absence of flames. The emergency is already over. What remains is interpretation, and interpretation is constrained by what the scene refuses to show. In certain records, the floor beneath the center is damaged in a way that suggests prolonged heat, while other surfaces nearby show only brief exposure. That conflict forces investigators to treat the scene as two different events occurring in the same space, yet there is no visible transition between them. There are also the human details that survive as negative evidence. A door that was not opened, a phone that was not used, a glass of water that was never reached for. These small omissions become part of the case because they imply a lack of warning. Because the moment is missing, the investigation becomes an inventory of boundaries. How far did heat travel? What surfaces were affected? What objects remained unchanged? The report reads like a map of a force that applied pressure from inside a narrow perimeter. Even the language of certainty becomes cautious. Some reports use phrasing like inconsistent with a typical structure fire or unusual degree of localized destruction, avoiding the dramatic label while still acknowledging that the scene does not align with the patterns they train for. Over time, the cases create a quiet category, not officially standardized, but recognizable to anyone who has read enough of them. A familiar template of containment, absence, and disproportion, repeating with minor variations and no reliable trigger. Over decades, language changes. Earlier reports use older forensic terms. Later ones use modern fire science phrasing. Yet the core description persists. Localized destruction, incomplete environmental involvement, and a missing moment in the middle. Public attention tends to arrive late, carried by headlines and repetition, but most cases remain in files, not in myth. The families receive conclusions that are careful and limited because the scene does not allow anything stronger. What makes human combustion a mythical ground case is not that it proves a mechanism, but that it holds the same shape across time. A human life interrupted inside a familiar interior, leaving behind a footprint that does not match the rules people rely on. The house is cleaned. The room is repainted. The report is archived. The pattern remains, ready to appear again, in a place that should have been safe because it was ordinary. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next Mythical Ground.